Disclaimer: watch at your own risk. Tonight, we drift into the darkest corners of human history. In the quiet coastal town of Port Elizabeth, South Africa, a young woman's ordinary night out ended in a nightmare of unimaginable violence. Her survival, a miracle that defied death itself. Franz du Toit and Theons Kruger were not strangers to darkness. They were ordinary men in their 20s, one a mechanic, the other a laborer. But their shared hatred for women had already turned them into predators known as the Ripper Rapists. By late 1994, they had raped at least 3 other women, their attacks escalating from assault to a twisted need to eliminate witnesses. Du Toit, 26, and Kruger, 21st, met through mutual friends and bonded over their misogyny, cruising the streets in search of victims. Their descent into murder began with a pact: no more survivors who could identify them. On December 18, 1994, after a night of drinking, they spotted Allison Botha, a 27-year-old insurance broker, parking her car outside her apartment after dropping off a friend. She was tired, but happy, unaware that Du Toit had been watching. He approached her car with a knife, forcing her to slide over as he took the wheel. "Move over or I'll kill you," he snarled. He drove to a remote spot to pick up Kruger, the 2 men laughing as they made their intentions clear. They would rape her, then kill her to silence her forever. Allison, terrified but calm, tried to humanize herself, talking about her family, but their obsession with control and destruction had already pulled them over the edge. They drove her to a deserted bush area on the outskirts of town, the Newit Act Road, where the only sounds were crickets and the distant ocean. There, under the stars, their violence erupted. In that isolated spot, the crime's signature unfolded with a brutality that seemed designed to erase Allison from existence. The men dragged her from the car, forcing her to undress. Du Toit wrapped her first, vaginally and anally, his hands choking her as Kruger watched, masturbating. Then Kruger took his turn, raping her the same way, their laughter echoing as they degraded her, calling her a bitch and whore. When they finished, they decided to kill her. Du Toit stabbed her in the abdomen 35 times with a knife, the blade twisting deep, slicing through her intestines and spilling them out in a bloody mess. Her belly was a ravaged landscape, loops of bowel protruding, blood gushing in hot streams. Not satisfied, Kruger grabbed her throat, slashing it 17 times with such force that the cuts reached her vertebrae, nearly severing her head. Only a thin layer of tissue held it on. Blood sprayed from her neck, soaking the ground, her windpipe exposed and gurgling. They stomped on her body, kicked her head, and left her naked, assuming she was dead. The signature was pure sadism, not just murder, but a ritual of dismemberment. Her body violated inside and out, guts exposed to the night air, head lolling like a broken doll. Allison lay there, her vision blurring from blood loss, but a spark of will ignited. She refused to die. The attackers thought they had evaded justice, driving away in Allison's car, dumping it later, confident their remote location and the night's darkness would hide their trail. They had bragged during the assault, mentioning their names. Du Toit even said, "We're Franz and Theons," believing she'd never speak again. For hours, they hid in plain sight, returning to their normal lives, Du Toit to his workshop, Kruger to his home, exploiting the era's lack of surveillance and the police's overburdened system. South Africa's crime rate was high. rapes often unsolved, and they assumed Allison's body would rot undiscovered. But Allison's survival shattered their evasion. As blood pooled around her, she focused on her mother, refusing to let go. Refusing to let go. Her intestines dangled out, so she used one hand to stuff them back in, holding them with her denim shirt tied tight. With her other hand, she gripped her nearly severed head, keeping it aligned to her neck to avoid choking on blood or collapsing her airway. Bleeding profusely, every movement agony, she crawled 300 feet through thorny bushes, broken glass, and dirt, her knees and hands shredded. Dizzy from shock, she stumbled onto the road, collapsing in the middle, praying for headlight. A passing car swerved around her, but then Tien Eilert, a 21-year-old veterinary student, stopped, horrified. He saw her mutilated form, guts bulging, neck a gaping wound, and used his own shirt to staunch the neck bleeding, talking to keep her conscious until paramedics arrived. Doctors at the hospital were stunned. Her injuries were fatal by any measure. Multiple organ damage, severed trachea, massive blood loss, but her will and quick surgery saved her. The unmasking came swiftly through Allison's unbreakable spirit. In the hospital, unable to speak with her throat stitched, she wrote notes. Franz and the Uns attacked me. Her description, Du Toit's tattoo, Kruger's build, matched police records of prior suspects. Within days, on December 20th, 1994, detectives arrested them at their homes. The men's alibis crumbling under evidence like Allison's car traces and witness tip. The trial in August 1995 was grueling. Allison testified for hours, facing her attackers, detailing the rapes and stabbings without flinching. The jury convicted them of abduction, rape, and attempted murder. Judge Chris Jansen, calling them vicious and wicked, sentenced them to life imprisonment without parole, a rare harsh penalty in post-apartheid South Africa. Their final fate lingered in controversy, a shadow over Allison's triumph. Du Toit and Kruger served 28 years at Grootvlei prison, expressing remorse in parole hearings, but Allison fought their release. In July 2023, they were paroled secretly, sparking outrage. Allison learned via public backlash, led Minister Peter Grunewald to revoke it in February 2025, sending them back behind bars indefinitely. Allison's recovery was nothing short of miraculous. Surgeons at Port Elizabeth Provincial Hospital repaired her intestines in a marathon operation, stitching 35 abdominal wounds and reconstructing her throat with 17 sutures. She lost her voice temporarily, endured infections and PTSD, but physical therapy healed her body fully. By 1998, she published I Have Life, detailing her ordeal. She married, had 2 sons, and became a global speaker. Her mantra, attitude, belief, choice. The 2016 film, Allison captured her story, winning awards. Doctors like Professor Vincent Alexander marveled at her. No vital arteries severed by millimeters, her determination aiding healing. Today at 57, Allison lives in Cape Town, a beacon of resilience. Her scars a testament to survival. A piat toward trout. The rain falls softly, washing away the blood of that night, but her story endures, a whisper of hope in the darkness, as another tale stirs beyond the horizon. On a freezing Valentine's Day in 1977, a cozy family card game in a small Indiana home turned into a nightmare of blood and betrayal. In Hollinsburg, Indiana, the Spencer family was enjoying a happy evening. Betty Spencer, 44, sat at the table with her son Gregory Brooks, 22, and her three stepsons, Raymond, 17, Reeve, 16, and Ralph, 14. They laughed, tossed coins, and shuffled cards, the room warm with love. Betty, tired from a long day, wore her wig a little crooked, but smiled as she watched her boys tease each other. Gregory joked with his younger brothers, and they fired back with grin. Outside, the winter night was quiet, the kind of still you only find in small towns. But that quiet hid danger. 4 young men were creeping closer. Roger Drollinger, 23, a criminal who loved trouble, and his followers, Michael Wright, 21st, Daniel Stonebreaker, 20, and David Smith, just 17. They went after money or grudges. Drollinger, the leader, wanted something sicker, the rush of killing someone just to see how it felt. Drollinger's path to murder started long before that night. He was no stranger to breaking the law, starting with small thefts and fights that got worse over time. By 1977, he pulled together a group of young guys who looked up to him, Wright, Stonebreaker, and Smith. They were lost, eager to impress, and drawn to Drollinger's wild energy. He didn't have one big reason to kill. It was more like a growing itch, a curiosity about what it would be like to end a life. That Valentine's night, as the Spencers played cards, Drollinger saw his chance. He told his crew they'd break into the house, steal what they could, and make sure no one could talk. The Spencer home was perfect, out in the country, far from neighbors, where no one would hear screams. What pushed Drollinger wasn't anger or need. It was a cold, twisted urge to feel the power of taking lives, to hold a gun and watch people die. When they attacked, it was fast and brutal. The front door crashed open, and the family's laughter turned to terror. Drollinger, gripping a shotgun, shouted orders while his friends grabbed Betty, Gregory, Raymond, Reeve, and Ralph. They tied their hands with rough ropes, the knots cutting into skin. The air felt heavy with fear as the family begged and cried. The gang ripped through the house, stuffing pockets with jewelry, cash, and anything shiny. But stealing was just a cover. Drollinger's real plan came next. He walked up to each person, calm as ice, and pressed the shotgun to their heads. One by one, he pulled the trigger. The loud blasts filled the house. Gregory fell first, then Raymond, Reeve, and Ralph, each shot blowing away their lives in a second. Blood splattered the walls and floor. Betty was last. Drollinger put the gun to her head and fired. Drollinger put the gun to her head and fired. The shot knocked off her wig, sending it flying across the room, and she fell, blood pouring out. But somehow she wasn't dead. The bullet didn't kill her, though Drollinger thought it did. The gang ran off, leaving the house smelling of blood and gunpowder, a scene of total horror. What made these murders so chilling wasn't just the killing. It was how cold and planned it felt, like a twisted show. Drollinger didn't just shoot. He executed each person one at a time, like crossing off a list. The shotgun blasts were so close they tore through skulls, leaving blood and brain matter everywhere. Betty's wig, lying in a pool of her blood, became the haunting image everyone remembered. A weird, awful detail that stuck in people's minds. It was like a cruel joke from fate, letting Betty live to see her boys dead around her. The card game they were playing was left scattered on the table, cards and coins frozen in time, a picture of a happy moment destroyed. For Hollandsburg, Drollinger's crime left a mark that didn't fade. People started locking their doors, whispering about the night a family was wiped out for no reason. The gang got away for a little while because they seemed so normal. Drollinger, Wright, Stonebreaker, and Smith looked like regular guys, young, in plain clothes, just blending into small-town Indiana. After the murders, they split up and hid in nearby towns, acting like nothing happened. Drollinger's charm kept his crew quiet. They were more scared of him than of getting caught. No one in Hollandsburg could believe local boys would do something so evil, so the police didn't know where to look at first. The crime was so messy and shocking, it took time to sort out. But Betty's survival changed everything. After the gang left, she woke up, covered in blood, her hand still tied. She crawled through the house, seeing her boys' bodies, Gregory, Raymond, Reeve, and Ralph, lying dead, their eyes open, blood everywhere. Her heart broke as she untied herself and stumbled to a neighbor's house, crying for help. Her story gave police a clear picture, and the hunt for the killers was on. The gang didn't stay free for long. Within a few weeks, police got tips and tracked them down. Michael Wright was caught hiding in San Jacinto, California, spilling secrets when questioned. Stonebreaker, Smith, and Drollinger were grabbed soon after, their young faces not hiding their guilt. In court, Betty told the story of that awful night, her voice shaking but strong, describing how Drollinger shot her family one by one. Stonebreaker admitted everything, saying Drollinger just wanted to know what killing felt like. No real reason, just a sick game. All four got life in prison, the evidence too strong to fight. Betty's survival was the key. She saw it all and lived to point the finger. Drollinger died in 2014, alone in his prison cell, his heart giving out. It ended his story, but the pain lingered. Wright, Stonebreaker, and Smith are still locked up, their parole hearings a constant reminder of the crime. Betty, who died in 2004, became a fighter for victims, teaming up with Carolyn Spencer, the boy's birth mom. They went to every parole hearing, making sure the killers stayed behind bars. Their strength kept justice alive, but it couldn't bring back the laughter of that card game. The Hollandsburg house sits quiet now, a sad memory in the town, the sound of cards and coins long gone. As the rain taps softly outside, the echo of those shotgun blasts fades into the cold night, the scattered cards blurring away. But another shadow moves in the darkness, a new danger waiting to step out and shatter another peaceful moment. On a bitter January night in 1993, the fluorescent glow of a Brown's Chicken restaurant in Palatine, Illinois, hid a horror that would haunt the town for decades. The restaurant, nestled at 168 West Northwest Highway, was a local fixture, one of many in the Brown's Chicken and Pasta chain that dotted Chicagoland, known for its fried chicken and comforting side. Owned by Frank Portillo, not Doc, the chain was a hometown staple, its Palatine location run by Richard and Lynn Anfeld, a couple in their late 40s who poured their hearts into the business. That night, January 8, 1993, the restaurant hummed with the usual rhythm of closing time. 5 employees: Guadalupe Maldonado, 46; Michael Castro, 16; Rico Solis, 17; Thomas Menes, 32, and Marcus Nelson, 32, and Marcus Nelson, 32, and Marcus Nelson, 30 were onside the Ellenfelds, unaware that two figures, Juan Luo 18 and James de Gaulle, were about to unleash a nightmare. Their motive wasn't greed alone, though they'd steal less than $2,000. They wanted, as prosecutors later said, to do something big. The descent into murder was chillingly calculated. Luna, a former employee fired from the restaurant, knew its layout intimately. The safe's location, the absence of panic alarms, the lack of weapons on site. He and Degorski, childhood friends from William Friend High School, had planned the robbery, but their intent stretched beyond cash. The thrill of power, of crossing a line most never dare, drove them. Around 9 p.m., as the restaurant prepared to close, they entered, armed with a snub-nosed Smith & Wesson .38 caliber revolver and a knife. They herded the 7 workers into the back, forcing them into 2 walk-in freezers. The air grew heavy with fear as the employees, some barely out of high school, realized this was no ordinary robbery. Luna and Degorski didn't hesitate. They shot 6 of the victims execution style, the revolver's crack echoing in the confined space. Lynn Ahlenfeld's throat was slashed before she was shot, a cruel flourish that marked the killer's savagery. The bodies were left piled in the freezers, a grim tableau of lives extinguished for a fleeting thrill. The crime's signature was its cold, mechanical brutality. The image of 7 bodies stacked in the freezers, some face up, others face down, became an indelible scar on Palatine's psyche. Lynn's throat, slashed before the fatal shot, stood out as a particularly vicious act, as if the killers wanted to ensure her suffering. The freezers, meant to preserve food, became a grotesque tomb. The victims' bodies discovered hours later, when police, alerted by worried families, found the back door ajar. A partially eaten piece of chicken, discarded in a trash can, added a chilling detail. A casual meal taken amidst the carnage, its saliva later becoming the key to justice. This wasn't just murder, it was a performance of cruelty. The killers lingering long enough to eat before vanishing into the snowy night. For 9 years, Luna and Degorski evaded capture, blending into the ordinary fabric of suburban life. Luna, a Mexican immigrant who'd gained U.S. citizenship, worked odd jobs, his past as a Browns employee fading into memory. Degorski, brash and manipulative, kept his circle tight, intimidating those who knew his secret. The Palatine police, led by Chief Jerry Bratcher, faced a case that seemed unsolvable. Over 60 detectives chased 1,100 leads, arresting and clearing 6 men in the first year alone. The community reeled. Sales at Brown's Chicken plummeted by 35%, and the Palatine location never reopened. The killer's ordinariness was their shield. 2 young men, unremarkable in appearance, slipping through a town gripped by fear. Degorski confided in his girlfriend, Ann Lockett, and another woman, Eileen Bacala, boasting of the murders but threatening their silence. The police, hampered by limited forensic technology in 1993, preserved evidence like the chicken, hoping for a breakthrough that seemed impossible. The capture came in 2002, sparked by a single act of courage. Ann Lockett, haunted by guilt and fear, finally approached police, implicating Degorski and Luna. Her tip led to a DNA match. Saliva on the preserved chicken linked to Luna, a feat made possible by advances in forensic science. On May 16, 2002, both men were arrested, Luna in Carpentersville, Degorski in Indianapolis. Luna confessed, though his lawyers claimed coercion, alleging police brutality and threats of deportation against his family. Degorski's recorded confession followed, cementing their guilt. In 2007, Luna was convicted of 7 counts of first-degree murder, sentenced to life without parole after a jury fell 1 vote shy of the death penalty. Degorski's 2009 trial, bolstered by Lockett and Bacala's testimony, ended similarly, life imprisonment, the death penalty narrowly avoided. The trials closed a chapter, but the wounds remained raw. The final fate of Luna and Degorski offers little closure. Both men, now in their 50s, are confined at Stateville Correctional Center, their lives reduced to the monotony of prison. Luna faced a 2019 attempt by the U.S. government to revoke his citizenship, a lingering consequence of his crime. Degorski, despite appeals claiming Lockett's testimony was unreliable due to her past drug use, remains caged. His 2014 civil suit for a jail beating netting him $451,000, but no freedom. The Brown's chicken site, raised in 2001 after failed attempts at other businesses, is now a Chase bank. The massacre's memory paved over, but never erased. The Ellenfeld's daughters, one later, a Wisconsin senator, and the victims' families carry the grief, their resilience a quiet defiance against the horror. Palatine, once a real hometown, still whispers of that night, the freezer's chill lingering in its collective dream. In the quiet suburb of Glen Ridge, New Jersey, where perfect lawns hid ugly secrets, a group of high school heroes turned into monsters one spring day in 1989. Christopher Archer, Kevin Schertzer, Kyle Schertzer, and Bryant Grober were the golden boys of Glen Ridge High. They were stars on the football, wrestling, and baseball teams, treated like kings in a town that loved its athletes. They grew up believing they could do no wrong, their pranks and cruel jokes ignored as boys being boys. Leslie Faber, a 17-year-old girl with an intellectual disability, had an IQ of 64, her mind like that of an 8-year-old. She'd known these boys since kindergarten, where they teased her endlessly. Still, she wanted their friendship, trusting them despite the hurt. On March 1989, it all changed at Carteret Park. Leslie was alone, holding a stick she used to hit a ball. Christopher Archer, smooth and sly, walked up to her during a casual baseball practice. He promised her a date with his brother Paul, a boy she liked, if she'd come to the Schertzer twins' house. Their parents were away, leaving only a grandmother upstairs who wouldn't hear a thing. Leslie followed, hoping to fit in. In the basement, 13 boys gathered, their laughter turning dark. It wasn't one moment that pushed them over the edge, but a twisted need to prove their power, egging each other on until cruelty took over. In that messy basement filled with sports gear, a couch, and a flickering TV, the crime became a nightmare no one could forget. 7 boys stayed after some left. 6 seniors and 1 junior, all but 1 football players. "You've at her Gator?" They circled Leslie, who stood confused but eager to please. Bryant Grober started it, pulling down his pants, and they told Leslie to take off her clothes. She did. thinking it was part of being liked. They made her perform oral sex on Grover while they laughed and shouted ugly names like whore. Then it got worse. They bent her over, taking turns raping her vaginally, their hands rough, their voices loud. From the corner, they grabbed a red-handled broom, wrapped it in a plastic bag with Vaseline, and pushed it into her vagina, cheering like it was a game. Next, they used a baseball bat from their sports pile, also wrapped and greased, forcing it into her anus and vagina as she whimpered. One even twisted it, while others watched, some touching themselves. A thin stick came next, used the same way, their laughter drowning out her pain. Kyle Scherzer hesitated once, mumbling to stop, but the group's energy pulled him back in. Afterward, they made her touch them, their hands guiding hers until they finished in a huddle, like a team celebrating a win. It lasted less than an hour, but the horror, everyday objects turned into tools of shame, a basement becoming a place of betrayal, stuck like a scar. For months, these boys walked free, blending into Glen Ridge like nothing happened. One, they went back to school, their status as sports stars keeping them safe. They even bragged about it, joking in locker rooms and planning another attack, this time with a video camera. Sure, no one would stop them. Leslie, hurt and confused, told her swim coach 3 days later, begging her not to get the boys in trouble. It wasn't until March 22nd, when a teacher overheard a kid talking about the video plan, that the school called the police. Detective Sheila Byron started digging, learning Leslie couldn't understand enough to say yes to what happened. But the town didn't want to believe it. Parents called the boys our guys, saying Leslie made it up or wanted it. The rumors grew, but the boys' popularity and their families' money kept them untouchable. It took until May when a news channel broke the story for the world to pay attention, forcing the police to act. Even then, the boys' lawyers painted them as good kids caught in a mistake, using the town's love for them to slow things down. The truth came out because of Leslie's courage and the police's hard work. Detective Byron's interviews showed Leslie thought like a child, unable to agree to anything. Paul Archer, Christopher's brother, lied at first, but finally told the truth, describing the broom and bat. The trial, from October 1992 to March 1993, lasted 23 weeks. Prosecutors Glenn Goldberg and Robert Laurino proved Leslie was too vulnerable to consent, using experts to explain her childlike mind and the trauma she faced. Leslie spoke for 16 days, her soft voice telling of the bat, the broom, and how she still cared for the boys. The defense tried to make her seem like she wanted it, dragging up her past, but the jury didn't buy it. On March 16, 1993, they found Christopher Archer and Kevin Scherzer guilty of serious sexual assault with the bat and broom, plus planning it together. Kyle Scherzer was guilty of assault and trying to do more. Brian Grover got a lighter charge for helping plan it. Their punishment left a bitter taste, like justice half done. On April 23, 1993, the judge gave Archer and Kevin Scherzer up to 15 years in a young adult prison, Kyle 7 years, and Grover just probation and community work. But they stayed free on bail while appealing not going to jail until 1997. Some charges were later dropped, but the big ones stuck. By 2004, they were out, trying to clear their names to avoid being labeled sex offenders. but they failed. Now their names are shadows, their lives hidden, while Leslie, protected by a fake name, lives with the pain in silence. Glen Ridge learned its heroes were flawed, but the rain falls softly, washing away the echoes of their betrayal as another dark tale waits to unfold. In the neon-lit chaos of a spring break night, a young man vanished, swept into a nightmare so grotesque it could have been ripped from a horror film's darkest frame. On March 14, 1989, Mark Kilroy, a 21-year-old University of Texas student, disappeared from a crowded street in Matamoros, Mexico. His life snuffed out in a ritual sacrifice that shook the world. As the rain falls softly, let these tales of cases with outcomes too bizarre to believe carry you into a chilling slumber, each story melting into the next like a dream you can't escape. He was gone before anyone noticed, the crowd oblivious to the abduction unfolding in their midst. The descent into horror was orchestrated by Adolfo Constanzo, a 26-year-old Cuban-American who called himself El Padrino, the Godfather. Once a tarot reader in Mexico City, Constanzo had woven a cult around Palo Mayombe, a religion he twisted with human sacrifice. His charisma drew in drug traffickers, corrupt police, and a college student named Sarah Aldrete, known as La Bruja, the witch. Constanzo believed blood rituals would make their drug empire untouchable, granting supernatural protection. Mark wasn't a random target. His American status and clean-cut look made him a prize for their altar, a sacrifice to fuel their delusions of power. The cult's obsession wasn't just crime. It was a chilling faith that blood could bend fate, a belief that pulled them deeper into darkness with every kill. At Rancho Santa Elena, a dusty farmhouse 20 miles from Matamoros, the crime signature etched itself into infamy. Mark was dragged into a shed, his wrists bound, his world reduced to dirt and terror. For hours, he endured unspeakable torture, beaten with fists, sodomized, his body a canvas for their cruelty. Constanzo, flanked by followers like Serafin Hernandez Garcia and Elio Hernandez Rivera, chanted as they worked. The final act was a machete blow to Mark's neck, killing him instantly. But the horror didn't end there. They carved open his skull, removing his brain to boil it in a nyanganga, a cauldron mixed with blood, a tortoiseshell, a horseshoe, and animal remains, believing it would grant invincibility. A wire was threaded through his spinal column, his legs hacked off at the knees, his body buried in a shallow grave among 14 others, men, women, even a child, all victims of the cult's rituals blending Aztec traditions and voodoo. The scene was cinematic in its grotesquerie, a blood-soaked cauldron, a shed reeking of death, and a wire protruding from the earth, meant to be pulled later for a macabre necklace. This wasn't just murder. It was a spectacle of twisted faith, a ritual meant to defy the gods themselves. The cult evaded justice for weeks, their drug trafficking cloaked by Constanzo's mystic aura. They operated openly, moving cocaine across borders, their rituals hidden in the remote ranch. Sarah Aldrete, a 24-year-old honor student at South Texas College, played a double life, attending classes by day and chanting over graves by night. The police, some bought off by the cult, turned a blind eye. Constanzo's followers believed their spells protected them, their arrogance blinding them to the cracks forming. It was a fluke that undid them. On April 1st, 1989, Serafin Hernandez Garcia ran a roadblock, thinking himself invincible. His arrest led police to Rancho Santa Elena on April 11th, where they found the mass grades, Mark's body identified by dental records, and the wire in his spine. Constanzo fled to Mexico City with Audrey and others, hiding in an apartment. On May 6th, police closed in after a neighbor's tip. In a final act of desperation, Constanzo ordered follower Alvaro de Leon Valdez to shoot him and another member, Martin Quintana, in a hail of gunfire, choosing death over capture. Aldrete was arrested, later sentenced to 30 years for murder and drug charges. Two members, Elio Hernandez Rivera and another, slipped away, their fates unknown. The case stunned the world. A spring break vanishing, ending in a cult's blood altar, a story too wild for fiction. Mark's parents, Helen and James Kilroy, turned their grief into action, founding a substance abuse prevention group. But the pain of their son's fate lingers. The ranch's graves, the cauldron's stench, the wire in the earth. They haunt like a nightmare you can't unsee. As the rain whispers, the image of that desolate shed fades, and another shadow stirs, pulling us deeper into the unbelievable. Why? In the quiet woods of Bear Brook State Park, New Hampshire, a rusted steel drum held a secret that defied belief. In November 1985, a hunter stumbled across it, revealing two bodies, a woman and a girl, aged about 10, wrapped in plastic, their skulls crushed. The case went cold, but in 2000, another drum surfaced nearby, holding two more girls, aged 2 and 4, also bludgeoned and hidden. The killer's descent began decades earlier. A man drifting through life with a trail of aliases. Terry Rasmussen, known as Bob Evans, Curtis Kimball, and Larry Vanner, was a chameleon, a handyman who charmed vulnerable women. Born in 1943, he'd abandoned his own family by the 1970s, his obsession with control driving him to kill those closest to him. He wasn't drawn by rituals, but by power, targeting women and children who wouldn't be missed. His girlfriend, Marlise Honeychurch, and her daughter vanished in 1978. His own daughter followed, along with an unidentified child. Rasmussen's need to dominate, to erase those who trusted him, turned him into a ghost who left bodies in his wake. The signature of his crimes was their chilling ordinariness. He killed with blunt force or strangulation. No elaborate rituals, just brutal efficiency. The bodies were stuffed into barrels or a trailer. Everyday objects turned into tombs. The 1985 drum held Marlise and her daughter Sarah. The 2000 drum held Rasmussen's daughter and another girl, her identity still a mystery. He disposed of them like trash, their graves hidden in plain sight in a park where families picnicked. His evasion was a masterclass in deception. Moving from California to New Hampshire, he used fake names, blended into small towns, and worked odd jobs. Arrested in 1985 for child abandonment under the name Curtis Kimball, he fled parole, becoming Larry Vanner. He killed again, murdering On Zoon Jun in 2002, her body found cemented in a basement. DNA technology, primitive in the 1980s, couldn't catch him until 2017, when genetic genealogy linked him to Bear Brook. By then, Rasmussen had died in prison in 2010, convicted of June's murder, but never charged for the barrels. The fourth victim, the unidentified girl, remains a ghost, her name lost to time. The outcome is what staggers. A killer who roamed free for 30 years, hiding behind alias, his crimes unsolved until after his death. The barrels, rusted and forgotten, held stories that only DNA could tell, and even then, not fully. The rain falls heavier, washing away the image of those drums as another tale waits to unfold, where truth is stranger than any dream. In the golden glow of Huntington Beach, California, a 12-year-old girl vanished while riding her bike, her carefree summer day ending in a horror that seemed too cinematic to be real. It was June 20th, 1979, when Robin Samso, a spirited blonde with dreams of ballet, pedaled to a friend's house, never to return. Her body was found 12 days later in a remote Sierra Madre canyon, raped, stabbed, and battered, her life stolen by a man whose charm masked a monstrous hunger. Rodney Alcala, a 35-year-old photographer, was no ordinary killer. Born in 1943 in San Antonio, Texas, he'd grown up bright but troubled, rejected by peers, and later the military for behavioral issues. By his 20s, his charisma, a toothy grin, dark curls, and quick wit hid a growing rage. His descent wasn't a single moment, but a slow burn, fueled by early crimes. A 1968 attack on an 8-year-old girl earned him a short prison stint, but parole boards, swayed by his charm, let him go. Alcala's obsession wasn't just killing, it was control, luring young women and girls with promises of modeling shoots, turning their trust into a trap. By 1979, he'd already killed at least 5, though police now suspect over 100, his victims spanning California, New York, and beyond. Robin's murder wasn't random. She was a target spotted near the beach, her innocence a lure for a man who thrived on dominance. The signature of Alcala's crimes was a grotesque ritual of torment. He didn't just kill, he played with his victims, savoring their fear. Robin was raped and beaten, her skull fractured with a rock, her body stabbed repeatedly, but Alcala's method was even darker with others. He'd strangle women until they passed out, revive them, and strangle again, prolonging their terror in a sadistic game. Some were bitten, their bodies posed, left in remote areas like props in a twisted photo shoot. His apartment, a cluttered space in Monterey Park, held trophies, jewelry, photos, a bag of earrings later linked to victims. For Robin, he approached her with a camera, offering a modeling gig, his smooth talk disarming her. After the murder, he discarded her body like litter, leaving it for hikers to find. The brutality wasn't just physical. It was the violation of trust, the way he turned a child's openness into a death sentence. His camera lens a gateway to hell. His crimes were a performance, each one a snapshot of his need to dominate, to immortalize his power over the helpless. Alcala's evasion was a masterclass in deception, a predator hiding in plain sight. He moved freely, working as a typesetter for the Los Angeles Times, even photographing high school seniors for yearbook. In 1978, while bodies piled up, he appeared on The Dating Game, winning as a charming bachelor with a grin that fooled millions. Women on the show found him creepy, but producers and audiences saw only charisma. Parole officers missed his violations, police ignored tips, and Alcala slipped through cracks in a system blind to his facade. He used aliases, traveled coast to coast, and kept his darkroom stocked with photos, thousands of images, some of unidentified women, many likely victims. His freedom lasted because he blended in, a handsome intellectual who disarmed suspicion with a smile. It was a pair of earrings found in a Seattle storage locker and traced to Robin that finally unmasked him in July 1980. A witness, a friend of Robin's, recalled seeing Alcala near the beach, sealing his fate. The trial in 1980 convicted him, but appeals and retrials, fueled by his manipulations and legal loopholes, delayed justice. A second conviction in 1986 was overturned, and it wasn't until 2010, with DNA linking him to 4 more murders, that he was sentenced to death for 5 killings, including Robin. Now, 82, Alcala sits on San Quentin's death row, his health failing, but the true scope of his crimes, potentially dozens of women, their faces frozen in his photos, remains a chilling void. The outcome, a killer who charmed a nation while slaughtering in secret, feels like a script Hollywood couldn't dream up, leaving a shadow that lingers as the rain falls. The image of Alcala's TV smile dissolves, and a colder wind blows across England's desolate moors, where a couple's love twisted into something unspeakable. In the gray, working-class streets of Manchester, England, a quiet clerk and a typist became monsters, their crimes so horrific they seemed plucked from a Gothic tale. Between 1963 and 1965, Ian Brady and Myra Hindley killed 5 children, aged 10 to 17, their bodies swallowed by the wind-swept Saddleworth Moor. Brady, born in 1938 in Glasgow, was a loner, his sharp mind drawn to Nietzsche and Glasgow, was a loner, his sharp mind. Hindley, born in 1942, was a shy Catholic girl who fell under his spell at a typing pool in 1961. Their descent was a shared obsession, a pact sealed by Brady's desire to defy morality and Hindley's blind devotion to him. And they weren't driven by impulse, but by a calculated need to enact Brady's fantasies of power and sadism. They targeted vulnerable children, lonely, trusting, or easily lured, offering rides or help, their ordinariness a perfect disguise. Pauline Reed, 16, was their first, followed by John Kilbride, 12, Keith Bennett. The signature of their crimes was a recorded horror that chilled even hardened detectives. Ew, hate the saddest stories. Leslie Ann Downey's murder was the most haunting. Lured to their home on Boxing Day 1964, she was stripped, bound, and tortured, her pleas taped on a reel-to-reel recorder as Brady and Hindley mocked her. The 16-minute audio, played at trial, captured her crying for her mother, begging to go home, while Brady photographed her naked, gagged, and terrified. She was raped and strangled, her body buried on the moor. The other victims faced similar fates, raped, beaten, or hacked with an axe, their bodies dumped in shallow graves across miles of desolate heath. The tape and photos, stored in a suitcase, were their trophies, a sick archive of their power. The Moors themselves became a character. In the horror, vast and silent, hiding the children's remains under heather and peat. Brady and Hindley's methodical approach, planning abductions, packing shovels, driving to the moor. made the ordinary act of a car ride a prelude to death, a signature that turned trust into terror. They evaded capture for 2 years, blending into Manchester's working-class life. Brady worked as a stock clerk, Hindley as a typist, their terraced house unremarkable. They socialized, visited pubs, and even cared for Hindley's grandmother, their normalcy a perfect shield. Police had no leads. The missing children blamed on runaways or accidents. Their downfall came by chance in October 1965, when Hindley's brother-in-law, David Smith, witnessed Brady kill Edward Evans with an axe. Shocked, Smith tipped off police, who raided the house and found the suitcase with Leslie's tape, photos, and a notebook of plans. The moors were searched, yielding 3 bodies, but Keith Bennett's remains are still lost. Brady and Hindley were convicted in 1966, sentenced to life. Brady died in 2017, Hindley in 2002, both unrepentant, refusing to reveal Keith's grave. The outcome, a seemingly normal couple committing atrocities, with a child's body still missing, defies belief, leaving a cold unease as the rain carries us back to silence, where nightmares blur into truth. In a quiet alley in Altrincham, England, a friendship turned to blood, unraveling a plot so twisted it seemed born from a fevered dream. On June 29, 2003, 2 teenage boys walked side by side, one hiding a kitchen knife, the other unaware his life was the price of a chilling deception. As the rain falls softly, let the story of the goose green stabbing carry you into a tale where truth is stranger than any nightmare, a case so bizarre it defies belief. John, 14, and Mark, 16, were best friends, inseparable in their Manchester suburb, sharing secrets and dreams in the glow of their computer screens. John was bright but troubled, his mind clouded by suicidal thoughts he kept hidden. Mark, older and protective, trusted John completely, never suspecting the darkness brewing. Their descent began not in the alley, but online, in an MSN chatroom where John spun a web of lies. Posing as a woman named Rachel West, he crafted a persona, 16, blonde, in love with Mark, who promised romance if Mark would do one thing: kill his best friend. John, consumed by his wish to die, didn't turn to pills or a rope. He orchestrated a murder, manipulating Mark with a fabricated love story. Over months, Rachel's messages grew urgent, weaving tales of masked spies and secret missions, claiming John's death was the key to their future. Mark, caught in the fantasy, agreed his loyalty to John twisted into a deadly pact. On that June evening, they walked into the alley near Goose Green, John knowing what was coming, Mark clutching the knife, believing he was proving his love to a girl who didn't exist. The crime's signature was its chilling intimacy. A betrayal masked as friendship. In the dim alley, Mark turned on John, the knife flashing as he stabbed him twice, once in the chest, once in the stomach. Once in the stomach. Blood soaked John's shirt, his body crumpling to the ground. Yet he didn't scream or fight, his silence a haunting echo of his plan. The wounds were deep, puncturing a lung and grazing his heart. But John survived, airlifted to a hospital where he clung to life. Mark fled, the knife discarded, his mind reeling with guilt and confusion, believing Rachel's promises would save him. The scene, a best friend stabbing another under a fabricated spell, wasn't just violent. It was a tableau of manipulation, John's own hand guiding the blade through Mark's truck. The check room logs, later recovered, revealed 46,000 pages of messages, a labyrinth of lies where John played multiple characters, from spies to lovers, to push Mark toward the act. It was a plot so intricate it felt like a script, each keystroke a step toward the alley's blood. Mark evaded suspicion briefly, blending back into school life, while John, recovering, initially lied to police, claiming a masked stranger attacked him. The town buzzed with fear, but the truth lay in the digital shadows. Police, suspecting a catfish, seized the boys' computers, uncovering the MSN chats. Detectives traced Rachel West's account, expecting a predator, only to find it led back to John. He'd created the persona, using his own pain to manipulate Mark, his suicidal intent cloaked in a game of deception. The revelation stunned investigators. How could a 14-year-old orchestrate his own murder? Mark's evasion crumbled as the chats exposed the plot, his confession revealing his belief in Rachel's love. The police, baffled by a victim who was also the mastermind, struggled to untangle the case, the alley's blood a puzzle with no easy answers. The capture was less a chase than a slow unravel. By late 2003, both boys were arrested, but the truth complicated justice. John admitted his suicidal plan, Mark his blind trust in a lie. The trial in 2004 at Manchester Crown Court was a spectacle. Judge David Madison calling it a plot fiction writers couldn't dream up. On January 27, 2004, Mark was convicted of attempted murder, John of inciting his own murder. Yet, no jail time was served. Their youth, Mark 16, John 14, and the case's unprecedented nature baffled prosecutors. How do you punish a victim who planned his own death? Both received supervision orders sent to secure units, not prisons. Today, their fates are shadows, their names protected, their lives faded into obscurity. The alley stands quiet, but the rain whispers of a friendship turned to blood. A story where victim and villain were one, leaving only unease as another tale waits to stir. In the small town of Barron, Wisconsin, a 13-year-old girl's ordinary day became a nightmare that gripped a nation, her survival a testament to courage in the face of unimaginable horror. On October 15, 2018, Jamie Kloss stepped off her school bus, unaware that a stranger's eyes were fixed on her, plotting a crime so chilling it seemed torn from a twisted script. As the rain falls softly, let the story of Jamie Kloss pull you into a tale of darkness and resilience, where a young girl's strength defied a predator's cruelty. Jamie Kloss, a quiet, blonde-haired 13-year-old, lived with her parents, James and Denise Kloss, in a modest home off Highway 8. She was a typical middle schooler, fond of dancing and cross-country. Her life centered around family and small-town routines. Jake Patterson, a 21-year-old loner, had no connection to her, no social media ties, no shared acquaintances. Born in 1997, Patterson was a high school graduate who washed out of the Marines after a month, drifting through odd jobs, his mind consumed by dark fantasies. His descent wasn't a sudden snap, but a calculated obsession. In early October 2018, while driving to a job at a cheese factory, He spotted Jamie boarding her school bus near her home. "I knew that was the girl I was going to take," he later told police. His fixation ignited in that fleeting moment. He spent weeks planning, twice visiting the Kloss home but aborting due to activity inside, fearing witnesses. His obsession wasn't just abduction. It was erasure, a need to possess and control, to rip Jamie from her world and leave no trace. On October 15th, Patterson made his move. Armed with a 12-gauge Mossberg shotgun, he shaved his head and face to avoid leaving DNA, dressed in a black coat, ski mask, and gloves, and drove to the Kloss residence. At 12:53 a.m., he parked at the end of the driveway, the house dark, except for a light James Kloss shone through a glass pane in the front door. Mistaking Patterson for a cop and demanding a bat. "Open the fucking door!" Patterson shouted, then fired a slug through the glass, killing James, 56, instantly, blood pooling on the floor. Bursting inside, he searched the house, determined to leave no witnesses. In the bathroom, Denise, 46, and Jamie hid, locked in a desperate embrace. Denise dialed 911, but the call disconnected amid yelling, the operator hearing only chaos. Patterson broke down the door, found them cowering in the bathtub, and ordered Denise to tape Jamie's mouth with Gorilla duct tape. When she struggled, he did it himself, wrapping it around Jamie's head, binding her wrists and ankles. Then, pointing the shotgun at Denise's head, he fired, blood spraying as she collapsed dead in front of her daughter. Jamie, trembling, was dragged outside, slipping in her mother's blood, and thrown into the trunk of Patterson's red Ford Torque. He drove off, passing police cars racing to the scene just 20 seconds later, their sirens blaring. The brutality was methodical, a signature of cold precision. 2 murders in 4 minutes, a family destroyed to claim a girl he didn't know. Patterson's crime wasn't just the murders. It was the 88 days of torment that followed. He took Jamie 70 miles north to his remote cabin in Gordon, Wisconsin, a cluttered single-story house where he lived alone. There, his control was absolute, a psychological cage as brutal as the physical one. He forced Jamie to strip, burning her clothes in a basement fireplace to destroy evidence, dressing her in his sister's pajamas. His signature was confinement under his twin bed, a space barely 2.5 feet high, where he hid her for up to 12 hours at a time, surrounded by plastic totes and barbells to trap her. No food, water, or bathroom breaks. She was a prisoner in a coffin-like void. When his father visited weekly, he cranked the radio to drown out any noise, threatening bad things if she moved. Once, when a tote shifted, he beat her back with a curtain rod, leaving bruises, warning her the next punishment would be worse. Another time, drunk and guilt-ridden, he let her write a letter to her aunt, promising to send it, but never did. They slept in the same bed, his presence a constant menace. Though he claimed guilt stopped him from raping her, admitting only to sexual fantasies. He allowed brief walks in the yard, checking for bystanders, but never let her leave the property. The cabin was a fortress of fear, Jamie's silence enforced by threats. Her world reduced to darkness under a bed, her parents' blood a fresh memory. Patterson evaded capture with chilling ease. His lack of a criminal record and the rural isolation of Gordon shielding him, he used no special locks, believing Jamie was too terrified to escape. His mind thing keeping her compliant. He monitored news reports, gloating that he'd gotten away with it after 2 weeks, assuming the police had no leads. The Barron County Sheriff's Office received over 2,000 tips, searched with drones and dogs, and issued an Amber Alert. But Patterson's car, a common Taurus, slipped past deputies that night. A burglar hit the Kloss home days later, stealing Jamie's clothes, but wasn't linked to the case. The community held vigils, tying blue and green ribbons, Jamie's favorite colors, while her Aunt Jennifer pleaded for her return. Patterson's arrogance grew. He even applied for a job in Superior, Wisconsin, the day Jamie escaped. Her breakout on January 10, 2019, shattered his illusion. He left her under the bed, saying he'd be gone for hours. Jamie, seizing her chance, pushed the weights aside, crawled out, and ran, wearing only leggings and Patterson's sneakers on the wrong feet. She stumbled into Jeanne Nutter, a social worker, walking her dog Henry, and whispered, "I'm Jamie Claw. He killed my parents." Nutter rushed her to a neighbor's house, where police were called. Jamie's description, Patterson's name, his car, led deputies to spot him driving nearby. He stopped, stepped out, and said, "I did it," confessing instantly. The trial was swift. On March 27, 2019, Patterson pleaded guilty to 2 counts of first-degree intentional homicide and 1 count of kidnapping. Avoiding a trial Jamie dreaded. On May 24th, Judge James Babler sentenced him to 2 consecutive life sentences without parole, plus 40 years, calling him the embodiment of evil. Jamie's statement, read by her attorney, was defiant. He thought he could own me, but he was wrong. I was smarter. I took back my freedom. Patterson, now 28, serves his sentence in a New Mexico prison, his remorse hollow. Jamie, living with her Aunt Jennifer, returned to school, resumed dancing, and became an advocate for missing children. At 20, she's healing, her strength a beacon. The rain falls, washing away the cabin's shadows, but Jamie's courage lingers, a light in the darkness as another tale waits to stir. In the quiet village of Loftahammar, Sweden, a routine evening walk turned into a tragedy so bizarre it seemed lifted from a dark fable. On September 5th, 2008, Agneta Westland stepped into the twilight with her dog, unaware that a drunken beast would end her life in a way no one could fathom. As the rain falls softly, let the story of Agneta's death pull you into a chilling tale where nature turned predator, leaving a community to grapple with an outcome too wild to believe. Agneta Westland, 63, was a kind-hearted woman, known for her love of gardening and her dwarf schnauzer puppy, Yak. Their life was simple, filled with the rhythms of small-town Sweden, mowing the lawn, tending flowers, walking the dog. On that September evening, Agneta prepared dinner, setting out plates and glasses, but first took Yak for his usual stroll in the forest, a path she knew well. The woods were close, just a short walk from their home, and the autumn air was crisp, the ground littered with fallen apples. Ingemar stayed behind, trimming the grass. When Agneta didn't return after an hour, worry gnawed at. He stepped outside, calling her name, hearing only silence broken by strange, loud noises, grunts and rustling from the trees. His descent into panic led him to search the woods, flashlight in hand, until he found her near the lake, her body battered beyond recognition, blood soaking the earth. Yaki was nearby, unharmed but trembling. Ingemar's Cries for help brought neighbors, then police. But the scene was so gruesome that suspicion fell on him instantly. The community whispered, how could a man find his wife so quickly unless he knew where to look? The crime signature was its savage brutality, a violence so extreme it defied human explanation. Agneta's body was a map of devastation. Her chest caved in, ribs shattered, arms and legs broken, her skull fractured, and deep gashes tore through her flesh. Blood pooled around her jacket shredded, stained with saliva, and matted with coarse hair. The wounds were so severe that police initially believed a mechanical tool, like a lawnmower's blades, had been used. The cuts jagged and deep, as if she'd been run over. Her torso was nearly crushed, her limbs twisted at unnatural angles, the ground trampled as if by a massive force. The scene suggested a frenzied attack, not a calculated murder, but the sheer destruction pointed to overwhelming power. Police found no weapon, no tire tracks, only the dog's leash tangled nearby, and a scattering of fermented apples, their sour smell lingering. The injuries were explicit in their horror. Agneta had been stomped and gored, her body flung like a rag doll, the force akin to a car hitting her at speed. The saliva wasn't human, the hair not Yaka's, but investigators, fixated on Injamar, assumed it was dog fur, dismissing it as irrelevant. The woods, usually serene, became a stage for a nightmare. The attack's ferocity, a signature of something wild and unstoppable. Injamar's arrest came swiftly, the police convinced he was the killer. He'd found Agneta too fast, they argued, and the injuries suggested a personal rage. Locked up for 10 days, Injamar faced intense questioning, his grief mocked as an act. The village of Loftahammer turned on him. At Agneta's funeral, 300 mourners glared, whispering had done it. For 6 months, he lived as an outcast, shunned, his claims of innocence ignored. The police's tunnel vision, focused on domestic violence, blinded them to other possibilities. No blood was found on Injamar's clothes, no weapon in the house, yet the case stalled, evidence unexamined. The real culprit, a young male moose, evaded notice entirely, its tracks hidden in the forest's undergrowth. Moose, common in Sweden, are shy, but can turn deadly in mating season, especially when drunk on fermented apples, a phenomenon locals knew well. This one, likely a 2-year-old bull, had gorged on the rotting fruit, its blood alcohol high, turning it aggressive. Agneta's dog, yapping at the wrong moment, likely triggered a charge, the moose hooves and antlers delivering the fatal blow. The animal vanished into the woods, leaving no trace, while Injamar bore the blame. The community's judgment a heavy chain. The truth emerged slowly, a twist no one saw coming. For 18 months, the case languished, Injamar a pariah, until a forensic team revisited Agneta's jacket in early 2010. The hairs, initially dismissed as Yaka's, were tested, revealing coarse, hollow strands unique to moose. The stains, thought to be mud, were saliva, confirmed by DNA as belonging to a European elk, Sweden's moose. Experts, including animal behaviorist Goran Eriksson, pieced it together. During mating season, young male moose become territorial, and fermented apples, abundant in local gardens, can intoxicate them, amplifying aggression. The apples near Agneta's body, half-eaten and reeking of fermentation, told the story. Yaka's barking likely startled the moose, which charged, trampling and goring Agneta with its hooves and budding antlers, each blow like a sledgehammer. The injuries matched a moose attack, blunt trauma, broken bones, and gashes from antler tips, not a lawnmower. Police announced the findings at a press conference on December 1, 2009, clearing Injamar, though they failed to notify him directly, adding insult to his ordeal. The community, stunned, struggled to accept the truth. A drunken moose, not a husband, had killed Agneta. No charges were filed against the animal, still roaming, or perhaps dead by a hunter's bullet. Ingamar sued the police for wrongful arrest, winning compensation, but the damage was done. His reputation, shattered by whispers, never fully recovered. He told Expressen newspaper, "My family and I have been dragged through a nightmare," his voice heavy with loss. Agneta's death, ruled an accident, left no villain to punish, only a freak encounter with nature's darker side. Only a freak encounter with nature's darker side. The moose, likely a transient bull, was never found. Its role confirmed only by forensic science. Sweden's forests, home to 400,000 moose, see rare human fatalities, about one per decade. But Agneta's case stood out for its brutality and the initial miscarriage of justice. Loftheimer's woods returned to silence, the lake reflecting stars, as if nothing had happened. Ingemar, now in his 80s, lives quietly, his wife's memory tied to a walk that ended in blood. The rain whispers, washing away the hoofprints, but Agneta's story lingers. A tale of nature's wrath, mistaken for human evil, fading into the shadows as another waits to stir. In the quiet town of Rockhampton, Australia, a teenage girl sat hidden in a cupboard, listening to the world declare her dead, while a serial killer stood trial for her murder. Our maid, Natasha Ryan, was just 14 when she vanished on August 31st, 1998, after a movie outing with friends. A troubled teen from a broken home, she'd faced family issues, her parents divorced, her mother Jenny struggling with depression. Natasha had run away before, but this time she didn't return. She fled to her 21-year-old boyfriend, Scott Black, a milkman she'd met through mutual friends. Their relationship was secretive, forbidden by her age, but Natasha saw escape in his arms. Scott hid her in his modest home on the outskirts of town, a decision that spiraled into a 5-year deception. At first, she stayed in a spare room, but as searches intensified, she retreated to the linen cupboard, a cramped space barely wide enough for her slender frame. For nearly 5 years, Natasha lived like a ghost, never stepping outside, surviving on canned food, reading books by flashlight, and watching TV through a crack in the door. Scott brought her meals, emptied a bucket for her waist, and silenced her during visits from family. Her descent wasn't into violence but isolation, a self-imposed prison driven by fear of authorities and a misguided love. Meanwhile, police linked her disappearance to an emerging serial killer, Leonard John Fraser, a 47-year-old drifter with a history of rape conviction. Fraser, released from prison in 1997 after serving time for assaulting women, began a killing spree in April 1999. Over 8 months, he abducted, raped, and murdered 3 women and a child, his rage exploding in Rockhampton's shadows. His rage exploding in Rockhampton's shadow. Fraser's crimes bore a signature of savage, opportunistic brutality. Each kill a ritual of domination and disposal. His first victim, Sylvia Benedetti, 19, vanished in April 1999. He lured her into his car, raped her vaginally and anally in a frenzy, then strangled her with his bare hands, her neck bruising purple as she gasped for air. He dumped her body in a shallow grave, partially buried under leaves. In May, Beverly Lego, 36, met the same fate, abducted while walking, dragged into bushes, raped repeatedly as she screamed, her body battered with punches before he choked the life from her, semen dripping from her wound. Julie Turner, 39, disappeared in December. Fraser raped her in his squalid flat, slamming her head against walls until blood streaked the floor, then strangled her, her eyes bulging in terror. His most heinous act came in April 1999. 9-year-old Kira Steinhardt, walking home from school. Fraser snatched her, drove to a remote spot, raped the child as she cried for her mother, then bashed her skull with a rock, brains spilling onto the dirt, her small body convulsing before going still. Hurry. He hid her under a mattress in an abandoned building. Fraser's signature was the escalation, starting with rape, ending in mutilation, bodies discarded like trash, often with ligature marks and semen evidence. He confessed to police in 2000, including falsely to Natasha's murder, claiming he had raped and strangled her too, but providing no body or details, perhaps to inflate his notoriety or toy with investigators. Fraser evaded capture for months, blending into Rockhampton's underbelly as a handyman, his unassuming appearance, short, balding, with a mustache, hiding his monster. He lived in a caravan park, preying on vulnerable women near pubs and streets, exploiting the town's transient population. Police had no DNA database then, and tips were scarce until Kira's murder sparked a manhunt. Natasha, meanwhile, mastered evasion in plain sight. Scott's house was searched twice during the initial disappearance probe, but she huddled silently in the cupboard, heart pounding, as officers rummaged nearby. She dyed her hair, lost weight to 40 kg, and avoided windows, her world shrinking to 4 walls. Scott lied to police, claiming no knowledge, while Natasha's family held vigils, presuming her dead. Fraser's luck ran out in December 1999, when arrested for Kira's murder after a witness saw him near the scene. He confessed to the others in prison interviews, including Natasha, leading to charges in 2001. But his evasion prolonged suffering. Bodies decayed. Families agonized. The unmasking came like a thunderclap during Fraser's 2003 trial in Brisbane Supreme Court. On April 10th, the 9th day, as prosecutors detailed Natasha's murder, police received an anonymous tip. She was alive at Scott Black's home. A raid followed. Officers burst in, finding Natasha cowering in the linen cupboard, pale and disoriented, wrapped in a sheet. "I'm Natasha Ryan," she whispered, ending 5 years of shadows. The trial halted in chaos. Natasha testified via video link, confirming she'd run away voluntarily, never meeting Fraser. The judge dismissed her murder charge, but convicted Fraser of the others based on confessions and evidence. Scott was arrested for perjury, admitting hidden her. Fraser's fate sealed him as Queensland's monster. Sentenced in September 2003 to indefinite life imprisonment without parole, he died in prison on January 1st, 2007, from a heart attack at 55. unrepentant, his false confession to Natasha's death, a final manipulation. Natasha, dubbed the girl in the cupboard, faced scrutiny, but no charges for staging her disappearance. She and Scott, married in 2008, had 4 children, and lived quietly until her death on June 2, 2024, at 40, found on a Rockhampton golf course in non-suspicious circumstances, possibly suicide, though unconfirmed. Scott served 12 months for perjury in 2005. The case lingers as a bizarre intersection, a runaway's secret life colliding with a killer's lies, sparing one innocent while damning the guilty. The rain falls, washing away the cupboard's dust, but echoes of hidden horrors remain, dissolving into the night as another tale stirs.